Hey guys, did you ever make promises to yourself when you were a kid? Like you would see an adult do something and promise yourself that you would or would not do that when you got older? Because I know I've totally done that. When I was about 8 or 9, my friends and I would play this game called Sweet and Sour. You may have called it something else, but basically the basic rules are that you try to get cars to honk their horn by doing some motion sort of like this. You know, naturally if the car honked it was sweet and if they didn't it was sour. And I thought I was the coolest kid on the block when a person didn't honk and I would just yell at them, "You person!" Because it wasn't an insult and yet it was said in anger as if it was. But anyways, it would always make my day when a car decided to honk. I didn't realize it then, but looking back now, those sort of games help kids establish the fact that they can influence the world they live in. You know, the world they're still trying to learn about and how to navigate. So when they can get the car to honk, it mattered, because it meant that they mattered to the world. See, when I was a kid, I always had a hard time understanding why a car wouldn't honk. I mean, you get to make kids' days, why wouldn't you do that? So I made myself the promise that when I was able to drive, I would honk every time someone was trying to play that game. And I thought that was a situation I was going to encounter when I was older and established and had kids and a house and everything, but I ended up butting heads with it last week. When I was driving home from school, there was a car in front of me that was slowing down so that they could turn. And just before I had to slow down so I wouldn't hit them, I saw kids on the side of the road doing this. And I'll admit, it took me a couple seconds to realize what they were trying to do. But then it all happened in slow motion. I could see their mouths moving. Honk your horn. And I immediately remembered the childhood oath I made myself take. And don't get me wrong, I really wanted to honk that horn. But then I realized if I did, the car in front of me would think that I was honking at them because they were stopping to turn. And then they would think I was a jerk. And so they turned and I kept going on my way, feeling really guilty about it. You know, it's a fairly simple thing to promise yourself to honk your horn when kids ask you to once. But in that given circumstance, I wasn't able to ethically do it. You know, it's kind of funny. When I was a kid playing the game, I always imagined the cars as unique entities that made the individual decision whether or not they wanted to honk, while kind of looking over the fact that there are people in that car making conscious decisions on how to control it, and barely giving any concern to what they may or may not be trying to do in that situation. And I just found it really interesting, because the situations that I viewed as the most simple things ever were actually much more complex than I could have imagined. And I'm kind of beginning to wonder where else I'm going to see that in my life in the future. So yeah, this video is a bit heavier than most of mine usually are, but I hope you guys don't mind. If you guys have any stories that are kind of similar to that, you can totally share them in a video response or comments. Or, you know, you could just tell me that I'm a whack job and overthinking things. One last promise. This is the only time I will ever end a video by Shane Dawsoning. If you like these videos, you should subscribe! I mean, if you have the time, you should do that.